Happy Wednesday, everybody. Another show, another video reaction. Me and Sophia, we're going to chop it up. How's it going, Sophia?
Hey, everything's good. Can't complain.
You looking nice today,
Thank you, sir.
as
And
usual. The
thank
beautiful Sophia.
oh no, stop it. You gonna make me blush and shit?
That's the whole purpose of the show. It's to
Ah,
make you
stop that.
blush.
No.
That's what it's all about. But yeah, tonight we're gonna have another one, another video reaction. We've got a few videos, and I saw, a video with T Jump. This stuff is all about the dark side of trans community, the dark side of the trans community. From the outset, I just want to let nobody hates on trans people. Nobody's transphobic here. Nobody's against gay people or bisexual people or anything like that. We're just discussing the possible dangers, especially towards free speech when it comes to that, but also towards the dangers to, even more importantly, the dangers to children that they encounter from the dark side of the trans community. Because, like with any community, there's always going to be a dark side, a problem that you can explore, and it's worth talking about. But because we're talking about it, doesn't mean we're transphobic or have a problem with freedom or anything like that. We're conservatives. Part of the conservative principle is freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom to live your life uninhibited by the government or any other individual. As long as you can swing your arms as much as you want, as long as you don't hit me in my nose, man, because I will take my gun and I will. No, I'm just kidding. You
Damn,
know what
that
I
turned
mean.
violent.
I know, the dark side of conservatism. That's what we should talk about. The dark side of conservatism. But what do you think, Sophia?
Well, I mean, everything had there's pros and cons to everything, and I think it's important that this one guy put it really good in a good way. He said, you know, it's like on being on a road and there are no signs and you really don't know what you're going to encounter. So all we're saying is there should be stop signs, there should be arrows pointing you in this direction and that direction. People shouldn't run into it blindly because I mean the truth of the matter is transgender therapy and treatment it's not some miracle drug that works for everybody in the same way
Hmm.
first of all. And second
Hmm.
of all, some people may not actually require that and get it done even though they don't need it. So, I mean, it's still drugs that are being put into people's system and they are
Hmm.
powerful drugs. So, we need signs, we need a roadmap, we need to have these things. Just like you wouldn't get on a road and just drive and there's no sign, you don't know where the hell you're going.
That's just being responsible. I think you're dead on. It's like, take accountability and responsibility for what you put in your body and the decisions you make, because and we're handling this from the cultural level. We're not asking the government to make this illegal or that illegal. We're just trying to implore and suggest very strongly that people consider what's going on out here in the trans community as far
Well,
as the
some
dark
things should,
side.
I guess I'm a little more radical when it comes to that. I mean,
Okay.
some things should be illegal, and
Oh
that's
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
when it
Like,
comes to children, yeah, most definitely.
Absolute. Well, yeah, absolutely. I would agree, 100%, 100%. I
Yeah,
take that back. You're right, because there's a lot of things, because kids should be protected by the law when the parents aren't doing their job. That's a violation of human rights,
right.
and the government has every right to step in and intervene when human rights are being violated, because again, that's just like me. If I want to say what I want and somebody wants to suppress my voice, I should have legal um, means to fight against that. And it's the same thing, even more so with something like abusing children, right? So I
Yep.
agree with you 100%. So, anyways, we're gonna get right into the video. Really interesting stuff. I'm gonna start with let's see. So yeah, I guess we're gonna start with the clinic, I guess you want to start with that video. I haven't seen any of these videos, by the way, folks, so I'm not even sure
Yeah, that
what I'm
the
going to
one
see.
with about the clinic is very interesting. Yeah, let's roll with
Okay,
that one.
awesome. So we'll get that going. Like I said, there's other videos that we're going to see. We're also going to see a debate between trans people, a trans person, or a trans advocate, and T Jump, a friend of mine who's a debater, and that should be very interesting as well. So I want to make
Okay.
sure we go over that too. But for right now, let's look at the clinic situation and see what that's all about. Let's go ahead and let the tape roll, so to speak.
Okay.
Teenagers think they've found a solution to something, you know, they will kind of they won't let go of that idea, and I was very much in that position, which is why I think it's important that the institutional changes are made so that they can't make those decisions so early and so young.
There will be some adults who've transitioned as an adult
Yeah.
who wish that they could have transitioned as a child.
Yeah.
What would you say to those people though? Because they were, you know, not everyone's the same, are they? That's case in point of why these things can even happen, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, everyone wants what they don't have. I mean, you know, these older adults, I'm sure they would feel that way. But, you know, as the High Court showed, you know, they ruled that children can't consent to the treatment because of the nature of the treatment and how lifelong it is and how, you know, negatively it affects our health. And a lot of the effects are also unknown. And so, yeah, it's easy for people that haven't gone through it to say, "Oh, I wish I had that," but you know, I've been through it, and it's not wasn't beneficial in any sense.
All right, guys. So that is Miss.
Can we stop that real quick?
Sure,
That
sure
is
can.
a miss. That is a.
All I wanted to say is that I love his perspective because I hear that all the time, and that is an argument that gender people will put, say. And the thing is, like he said, if you haven't went through it, you can't say that because you haven't actually experienced the negative side effects of it, which is also part of it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I just wanted to kind of reiterate that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I want to skip through this guy's reaction because we're doing a reaction to a reaction in that case. So let's see if we can get back to the news feed here. Here we go.
Criticizing this clinic. Take a look.
Let's get through these ads
So,
too.
Graham, you essentially were
My inspiration is just flowing and coming.
cancelled by polite society, the entertainment industry, in part because of your criticisms of the Tavistock Clinic, which have now been completely backed up formally with the government announcing the closure of the Tavistock. Do you feel vindicated by that?
Oh, yeah, but I felt vindicated when I went on Newsnight because I knew about the whistleblowers. I was actually friends with some of the whistleblowers at the Tavistock who had been reporting things like homophobic parents bringing their kids in to be transitioned.
But they tried to portray you as an extremist.
Yeah, they treated me like I was David Icke.
Yeah,
you know, and it was like it was so strange because at the time they had two journalists working on the story for their own show. So for some reason, one part of Newsnight decided to continue, trans activists' campaign to destroy my life by making me look like I'd gone insane. And yeah, at the same time, they somehow managed to get a story through about the Tavistock, which was very rare on Newsnight because BBC in general, Newsnight as well, have been very careful to kind of lie by omission about this subject. They don't cover it. Even now, when it's been revealed that 1,000 families are going to sue the Tavistock, I asked how long I had. They said 5 minutes. 5 minutes to talk about the sterilization of children. And they threw a Pink News headline at me. Pink News have written, I believe, more than 75 stories about me since I started talking about this issue. Still don't beat J.K. Rowling, who got 42 stories in a single week. But I went in thinking, because it's very hard to explain this subject to friends and family. They didn't understand it. And I thought, well, at least Newsnight will provide a good, sober kind of analysis of what's going on. But of course, it's not in their interest to do that because the BBC is captured. You know, they have children's TV programs telling kids that there's more than 100 genders.
Yeah. So just that conversation is that
Right.
that guy basically blew the whistle on this gender identity clinic, right? Doing an
You can
interview
stop
with
him
the BBC.
if you want, because
Yeah.
he's just gonna continue to give his reaction. So, but
Right.
I mean, what really stood out to me is like I didn't even know that this type of shit went down. That you know, homophobic parents will track their kids to a gender clinic
Yeah.
because that's shocking.
Like,
Go
what
ahead.
sense does that make? I don't understand the connection
Well,
there.
I'm guessing the psychology behind that or reason behind that would be if you're a homophobic parent, man, I can't talk today. I'm tired. Anyway, if you're a homophobic parent and your child comes out as queer or gay or whatever, and you don't approve of it, then to make it look more normal and acceptable, you would drag your kid to a gender clinic and make them transition because they're ashamed of it and they don't want to be known to have a gay son or a lesbian daughter, you know.
So it's
So
almost like the parents have gender dysphoria for their own child.
well,
Because
not gender dysphoria, but they are ashamed of their own child.
well, yeah, I guess the connection I was making was like, let's say a person feels more feminine, say a guy, let's say it's a little boy and he feels he doesn't fit into his biological sex somehow or role or whatever you may say. Then he, in order to alleviate that stress and anxiety and depression in his life, he'll want to transition for the same reasons that it seems like these homophobic parents want their child to transition over because it'll look more acceptable. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
but it makes sense, but I don't think that all trans people have that reason for
Right.
transitioning.
Of course. Of
You know,
course.
because dysphoria is more something like kind of like anorexia. Like when you have anorexia, you have a distorted self-image. So when you look in the mirror, you see a fat person, but you're getting skinnier and skinnier. So when a person with dysphoria, a male that feels feminine or feels that they're a woman or that they're in the wrong body, they can't stand to look at themselves because they feel like that shouldn't be them. You know what I'm saying? That they feel completely inadequate, basically.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, it looks like this is all that the rest is the guy reacting to what we just saw. It looks like I was just scanning through the video. So we'll go on to the other one because this is going to be really interesting.
Well, I did want to say a little more about that.
Sure, go right ahead while I'm
I think
ringing it up.
I think that's actually a success because that clinic was known to just do all kinds of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, just without even, you know, quick to affirm genders and not even really diagnosing and doing this to young, like kids, you know, youngsters. And so with them being sued by up to 1,000 parents, that clinic actually was forced to shut down. And I think we need to see things like that happen more often.
Yeah, that's right. Because these are the dark sides, you know. That
but it was in
addressed.
England. It was in England. This was not in the United States. So hopefully that kind of spills over to here too, you know.
Right. Why does this video want to play on its own? I don't get it. I'm not touching anything. Okay, there we go. All right. So I'm going to go ahead, I guess, and pull up about the 14-year-old to become prostitute. That's kind of interesting and kind of disturbing. What is that all about? Let's check that out. And again, guys, if you like the content that we're presenting each week, please like and subscribe to the channel. We are in build mode. We're trying to increase our viewership. We want this to be a conversation that is interactive. So that's why I always list out, you know, the link so that you can call in and actually engage in the conversation. We want to hear what you got to say. And again, we don't want to be in the business of just shutting folks down and being, you know, toxic ourselves. We just want to have a conversation and explore things, because me for one, I'm a very skeptical kind of person, so I don't even trust my own abilities half the time, and that's proven to work for me because there's a lot of times when I'm wrong about stuff. But as long as I think I'm right, I'm going to push the issue, and I'm going to stand for what I believe in and stand against what I don't until you can show me evidence to the contrary. That's how it works, guys. So, anyways, let's go on to the next video. This is really kind of disturbing just at face value.
Fox, an employee with Child Protective Services, is caught on camera telling a 14-year-old girl in foster care to become a prostitute.
That's right, and this girl is one of hundreds of kids in
That's
CPS
crazy
custody
shit.
living in hotels all over the state. Fox 26's Randy Wallace live from Southwest Houston here with this story. Randy, the exclusive.
Yeah, Jonathan. Now, earlier this year, a federal judge scorned Child Protective Services for making kids available for prostitution in the CPS system. Now we have a case where an employee with that state agency is actually encouraging prostitution of a 14-year-old child.
Jesus.
Don't be a hoe, be a real hoe. Wouldn't they remove a child from a parent that told their child?
Do you hear what she said?
They should.
Yeah, let me back that up because I didn't really hear that. Hold on.
She literally said, if you want to be a hoe, be a real one.
Don't be a hoe, be a real hoe. Wouldn't they remove a child from a parent that told their child to be a prostitute? They should. And they would. Keisha Basley has 9 kids. She turned to Child Protective Services to help her with her 14-year-old daughter, who she says was running away and causing trouble at school.
My daughter told me that the worker had been telling her that she should do these things. So she said she decided to video her.
CPS is housing the girl at a hotel. She's one of dozens in Harris County. In the video, she tells the CPS employee she wants food. The CPS worker tells her to be a prostitute. I mean, she was basically encouraging a 14-year-old girl to become a prostitute.
And giving her an incentive to do so, and almost a threat of not having her needs being met if she didn't do what this woman very explicitly told her to do.
If me, the parent, was to do something like this to my child, I would be bashed. I would be called a horrible parent.
Go to
I
jail.
would lose my kids.
Basley filed a formal complaint with CPS.
This should not happen to girls in their care. This should not happen. This is unacceptable.
Jamie Masters, the commissioner of CPS, came to Houston to personally apologize to Basley and her daughter.
I've never seen that happen before, where a commissioner of CPS comes in from Austin just to apologize about something that's horrible that's been done to a child and a parent involved with CPS.
I do not believe that that was genuine. I really don't.
It's bad enough if it's one rogue caseworker. It concerns me that it may be bigger than that, and they need to investigate this and make sure that it's not just one person. And they've got to figure out a way to protect these kids.
Wow.
CPS sent us the following prepared statement. DFPS is aware of the video and has taken action. The person in the video, who was employed as CPS support staff, was dismissed from her position August 10th. The safety and appropriateness with which children in care must be treated is our paramount concern. Nothing less will be tolerated. Reporting live from the Southwest side.
Yeah, that's wild, man.
She should also go to jail for child endangerment, if you ask me, because she's encouraging a 14-year-old to go prostitute. And if that girl would have listened to her or felt like that's what she actually had to do to get some food, and something would have happened to this child, she would have been a shit creep. You know what I mean?
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, she's trying to be a pimp at that point, you know?
Yeah, and then it was a black woman saying this to a black child, so there was no racism involved for anybody who's wondering.
Yeah, that's sick. That is sick stuff,
sick.
Man. Oh my
And
God.
everything that's happening nowadays is just targeting kids. I'm just so fed up with it.
Yeah, and what scares me is the fact that it'll become in our politically correct and cancel culture society. It may come to a point where you can't even talk about these things for fear that doing so is a form of hate speech. You know,
you can't even call groomers anymore, or it's getting close to that because that's hate speech.
You get banned off social media sometimes for saying stuff like that. It's just ridiculous because everybody wants to virtue signal. And here's the downfall. And this is why things have to be addressed from the cultural level. Again, corporations and businesses, capitalists, are in the business of selling products and making money and advertising and all of these kind of things, right? So their only job is to make bottom line money, right? So if they know the culture doesn't want to hear the word groomer, or they don't want to hear certain people talk about certain things because they want to make money, they're going to always side with the public on that. And so it's our job as conservatives to change the culture, at least to wake them up to what's really going on. Because see, this is abusing kids. This is a violation in many cases of our free speech when it comes to politically correctness and things we just talked about. So yeah, and so you can see the danger, the dark side on any issue, especially on this transgender stuff. It has to do with sex, it has to do with children. There's gonna be problems. Believe that shit. So anyways, we're going to move on to the next video. This one here looks like a non-binary TikToker claims white people can't be non-binary because gender is white supremacist. What does that mean?
Oh, Lord.
That don't even make sense. I can't even connect it right now mentally. I'm not understanding the connection. But we're going to find out what she has to say.
So this is what I don't understand. What I don't understand is why white, gender nonconforming, and trans people could conceptualize their own transition as something that has an impact on other people on a systemic level. Like, I don't understand how you transition and then you feel like that in of itself is transgressive to the point that it's disrupting the status quo. Maybe y'all can help me make sense of that.
I understand
boy,
shit
oh,
she was saying.
boy, oh, boy, oh.
What?
What the hell is transgressive?
Yeah, that didn't even make sense. So
I don't even know what the hell she's talking about.
I'm not really following her point here.
We have to get more into it because that shit sounded like word salad.
Yeah, it did, didn't it? I'm going to look for a spot where she's actually, well, there's a bunch of TikTokers out here talking. So let's hear what the next group says.
Let's see what he says. Maybe he understood it.
Yeah, let's see what he has to say here.
Boy, dude, I got a hilarious story or TikTok reaction for you guys today because I'm going to be quite honest with you. I have no clue what the hell is going on, and I need you guys' help trying to interpret what is being said here, right? And what is this conversation about? What is this person trying to say? Okay, it sounds like this person who we're going to talk about, who's a black non-binary woman on TikTok. She's going to basically argue that white people can't be non-binary because gender is white supremacy, right? Like the belief in two sexes is racist, right? I find this conversation that's going on TikTok around this woman's TikTok.
She's saying that the binary system in itself is white supremacy because white supremacists invented it. That's what she's saying. The fucked up part about that is that simultaneously means, and I think she's gonna say that later. I didn't watch the whole thing. It sounded like gibberish to me, but I think what she's actually gonna say ultimately is that black people are naturally non-binary, and because of white supremacy,
that's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds. And you know that. Oh my goodness! Look, she's obviously she's never been in contact with African culture, like pure African cultures. Like I have been, deep in it. Put it that way. I know intimately family that are Africans that talk about, and they are so traditional. When you talk about the traditional view, like one thing they laugh about Americans is even having these kind of discussions. To them, this is just retarded stuff. They in fact, what if you ask most Africans, especially at least the Africans I know in my family, if you ask them about any of these topics, they will actually tell you this is white people stuff. This is not black people stuff. Black people have nothing to do with non-binary, gay stuff,
Yeah, they'll say the
LGBT. This is all
opposite.
white inventions. That's what they will tell you. I promise you.
My thing
They
is,
will tell you that.
where in the hell are these people getting this shit from? Like, where did this shit come from? How is it that stuff like that all of a sudden appears out of nowhere? And where are they learning this? Who said such a thing? You know, that's what I'm trying to figure out. But I'm the crazy one because I'm like, this shit sounds like fucking word salad. I don't even know what the hell you talking about.
That's what I'm saying.
So ass backwards. And then to basically claim that we're naturally as black people non-binary, like that don't even make any sense. And that's how the white man kept us down, man. I didn't heard it all.
Oh my God. Yeah, that don't even make sense.
That video, they said, this is not a white friendly video, put your grown-up hat on. And the gender binary has been upheld by people for such a long time. So how can we opt out of something that we are actively participating in upholding? Another creator who I have really appreciated since I pretty much joined TikTok, Mooney Maroon, brings up the pronouns they, them, and how they have not felt gender neutral for a lot of non-communities for a long time. That has been kind of co-opted and colonized and turned into a third gender of its own. And Mooney brings up a really good point that using they, them for a black woman plays into the masculinization of black women that has been a racially violent problem historically.
I understand this might not be my place because I am a white non-binary person. If it's not, tell me and I'll take it down and I'll apologize. But I did want to talk about this because they're right and I agree with that. I want you guys, especially white people, to go watch that video, and I'll tag another creator who made a video on this topic that I really agreed with. And I want you to actually listen to what they're saying, because if your first reaction when you heard that was to get angry, you're in the wrong.
We're not angry, we're laughing.
Gender and whiteness are synonymous. Gender was used to oppress people of color. I'm not saying that as a white person, you have to agree with your gender assigned at birth. But what I am saying is that as a white person, you can't speak for the non-binary community as a whole.
Here's the other thing that really great.
Can you stop here? Like, really, I should be getting pissed off, because really what these white liberals are doing is basically trying to brainwash us into believing that we should be queer and non-binary and whatever else, because honestly, that's a direct attack of the nuclear family structure right fucking there. And who is this little retarded heifer to be telling me that's how I'm being oppressed as a black person? Like, what the fuck? Like, that's the least of our concern. Like, are you fucking
This
serious?
just seems so racist to me.
It is like
this
they try to tell
these
us
are the
how
same
to,
people.
They're trying to tell us how to be. Like, literally, you're trying to tell me that's how I need to be free. Not I need to be non-binary or non-gender conforming to be free, because the white man is holding me down with his binary system. The binary system is natural, it's nature. That has nothing to do with white men or white people.
And for as long as humans have been around, they've come up with words to match sexuality. Woman, man, that's been the traditional historic thing. And so the language has just been in us since the beginning. Now, the other thing that I want to say is that this is so racist, because these are the same people that only a few years ago, and rightly so, would say that people should be judged by the content of their character via Martin Luther King and this and that. These are the same people that says, oh, you shouldn't see color. Oh, you shouldn't see, these things and discriminate. You shouldn't judge people by the groups they belong with. And yet that's exactly what they're sitting here doing. They're saying white people do this. You're judging a group, white people. It's almost like that's reverse racism. They try to say, like, some conservatives that don't believe in, say, reparations or something like that are using reverse racism. Actually, no, they are the ones committing reverse racism, because they're now saying instead of us being racist against blacks, we're going to be racist against whites in order to judge white as a group and black as a group.
I
So
don't even think they're being racist. I think they're just being fake as fuck, to be honest.
they just don't. Yeah, they don't know what they're doing. That's the problem.
No,
they don't understand.
They know what they're doing. They're doing it very systematically. They know what they're doing. They're trying to virtue signal and make it seem like they're on our side by constantly telling us that we're victims of the white man. And then because you're the white person that's in my face telling me that I'm a victim, I'm gonna side with you and think you're my friend. You see what I'm saying? They're manipulating bastards. I don't know what else to say, but they're snakes. They're snakes in the grass.
Yeah, to say the least, man. And just stupid. If you really break it down, they have no logical.
You think I'm really gonna appreciate this shit or like this person because of that? Hell no.
Yeah, like you just want to feel like a victim. Wow. Well, let's hear what this chick has to say.
Whiteness and white privilege are inherited in gender identity. 10 times out of 10, I will not experience racism on top of being transgender. I know my skin gives me a layer of protection and allowance from other white people to present myself outside of the white normality. I know that queerness for a lot of bigots presents in their mind as the Black trans women who fought for decades to earn my rights to exist now. I know that the government in place in this country wants to eradicate queer rights, not because they fear their straight and religious lifestyles are being threatened, but because there are more white queer people today, which means there'll be less white babies. For a lot of white queer people, their first reach out of that oppressive normality is towards BIPOC culture. Is it wrong in cultural appropriation? Absolutely.
Bruh, I'm just flabbergasted, man. Like, I don't know what to say. I mean, she's essentially just saying that the last person literally just said being non-binary is basically BIPOC culture, which she basically means it is a black thing. It is specifically a black thing. It is a black thing to be non-binary, right?
Lost her
That
mind,
is
man.
crazy, man. I want to hear what this chick's got to
That's
say.
what I
now.
thought she was. That's what I thought she was saying too. I mean,
yeah,
this is crazy, absolutely crazy.
So remember when I was like, hey, I don't really get how you could be white and non-binary, like it doesn't really gel, doesn't really make sense to me, and people were mad at me because I said that? Okay, so look at this comment, click on it, okay? I want y'all to click on it, and I want y'all to look at what video it was posted under, and I want y'all to look at who posted this comment, and then tell me again that I'm wrong as a Black non-binary person for having mistrust from queers. Because even when we're super loud about our identities, you guys still see our existence as nothing more than just allyship to you. And how telling is that? How telling is that? But I'm gonna try to make it clear. This is the thing, right? So a lot of times when are marginalized, they think that the folks of color who are also marginalized by the same powers that be are experiencing the same marginalization as these people, and then something extra on top, aka the racism. I need y'all to understand that racism mixed with any marginalization creates a completely different, separate oppression that y'all don't experience at all.
Yeah, like I said, it's a
That's
race to the
victimhood.
bottom,
That's
man.
like victimhood
Who can
times
be the biggest
25,
victim?
man.
Okay, who can be?
yeah, that's wild. You know,
That's victimhood amplified.
that's the competition we're in. Who's the biggest victim? You know, who can be the biggest victim?
I had a question too. Wasn't queer at one point in time considered offensive? The word queer.
Mm-hmm.
Was it?
Yep.
Right.
It was.
So
You don't call them queer.
How did queer become acceptable in them referring to themselves as queer all of a sudden? Like, I missed that somehow. Like, what happened there? Does anybody know? Anybody that may be watching? Like, I have no clue. I just wanted to ask because when I thought that was weird, because I know there was a time where if you said queer, you were called a homophobe and everything else.
A few years ago, you could never say a man can do the same thing a woman can, because that was to discriminate against women. Men can't have babies. Men can't do this. Men can't do that. Now all of a sudden, what is a man? Really, what is a woman? So it's like it's changed. It's like they push the envelope. of language, and this is a great segue into the T-jump debate, because that's exactly what they're talking about. They're talking about using language. If you don't use pronouns, or if you don't even agree with the pronouns that a person uses, that automatically makes you a homophobe or a transphobe. And this is an interesting thing, because this is now stepping again into the area of free speech, right?
Yep.
And it's like they're trying to control how we think, because when you control speech, you're essentially controlling the way people think, because speech is how you express your thoughts, right? And if you can't say certain things, that means you can't think certain things.
I'm trying
And
to
I don't
fucking
like
remember.
that.
I'm trying to fucking remember. Was there ever a time where anybody was fined for calling me a nigger?
Right. Never. Never.
I don't think so. That's just something I have to fucking deal with, right? Because at the end of the day, somebody can call me what they want to call me. It's how I respond to it that matters, right?
Right.
So where's the
So
self accountability? And that's why this whole ideology gets under my fucking skin, because
it's so contradictory.
they take their struggles or whatever and put it in the front before every fucking thing else, and make it seem like they're the most victimized people on the whole planet. And it's just so, I'm so tired of it. And at this point, I don't even care who calls me a homophobe, transphobe. I don't even give a shit. I really don't.
So this video is with one of my friends on Facebook, and we've actually done debates together and moderated debates together and worked together on a few things on different channels and platforms, and even my own. And T-Jump is a cool guy. He's kind of like me, a pantheist, kind of like considered an atheist by Christians and others, of course, as I am. But of course, it goes beyond that. But all word salad shit, labels and whatnot. So anyways, T-Jump's a very well thought out guy. We think alike on a lot of things. And so I wanted to really see what he had to say to this pro-trans person about the pronoun issue. And it was a very interesting
what's his
video.
political view? What's his political
Not sure. You know, he had libertarian on, and they seemed like they hit it off real. They were like agreeing on all kinds of stuff. He's definitely not a liberal, and he's always seems to be in arguments against liberals. So he hasn't really expressed. I know he's going to run for president, by the way. He's actually trying to run for president right now. And in fact, he's also started another thing I want to plug.
I never heard of him though. That's kind of crazy.
I told him I would plug his thing. Is he's trying to start a church of non-believers, to where they actually help the community, and they're actually helping to give homeless people rent-free housing from his own donations from his church. So that's what he's working on. He's trying to work on a church that doesn't really worship any Christian God or anything like that.
But why would he call it a church if he's non-religious?
Because he's trying to take back, because one of the arguments that a lot of Christians say is that, oh, atheists, they say they're not religious. Pantheists, they say they're not religious, but they're just as religious as us, blah, blah, blah. And they have churches. They just don't call them churches. So what T-Jump says is, you know what? Great. If you want to believe that, fine. In fact, I'll go ahead and start my own church. And it'll be a church, and it'll do the same thing that Christian churches do: help the poor, help the community. And it's what he believes in. It's what he wants to do: help the community. Because that's the one thing he does agree with churches about, is that they do at least go out and help the community, help the poor and stuff like that. And he says, so there should be an outlet for unbelievers to do the same thing without having to join a church. So he wants to start an organization that fulfills that need for the community. So anyways, always
complicated, but okay.
Yeah, it's complicated. It could be complicated.
Some atheists do behave like that, and I agree. Some atheists do act like their views are
very
absolute.
Religious.
And when it comes to that absolute bullshit, like with
Yep.
Well,
T-Jump is not one of them. We've had that discussion, and he's the one that we both agree that anytime you engage in absolutes and say you know that there's no God or whatever,
you might as well
you're
call
pretty
yourself
much
religious.
Yeah, exactly. So he's on the board with that idea. So anyways, I wanted to check them out, let you guys see what this was all about because I found it very interesting and funny. Oh,
thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Yeah, so good to be on. Thanks for working with my schedule here. So
Ooh, that's hard
I'm
to hear
not
from
really about any of this sort of political
Yes,
debate
turn it
stuff.
up.
Don't really have a channel or anything. But back when COVID first hit, had a lot of free time, got pretty active in a lot of debate groups on Facebook and all that sort of stuff. Built some sort of reputation, apparently did enough to get me invited on here. And thanks for having me. It's so good to be back at it. It's been a while. The standards got real strict with Facebook and all that shit, and it just became impossible to do anything on there. And I just didn't really want to keep going with it anywhere else.
All right. So topic today is saying trans women are not women inherently transphobic? And so just want to give you a background of my position. My position is that since the vast majority of humanity has been using the word woman to be synonymous with sex and gender are synonymous essentially, then the fact that a new group comes along and wants to usurp the word and use it in a different way would not make anybody who disagrees with that bigoted in any way, because they just want to use the language the way they've been using it their entire lives. It has meaning to them. It has utility to them. It's how they've brought up using the words. And so if someone else wants to change the way they use their words, them saying no wouldn't be bigoted. Now, obviously some people could be bigoted. They don't like them, but the vast majority of people are just use the word to mean something differently. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way they were brought up using the terms. And because that's the case, I would say they're not inherently transphobic for saying that women is synonymous with biological sex.
Okay. So one thing I want to touch on here is saying a phrase itself that is transphobic doesn't necessarily make the person saying that transphobic themselves. This is, for many people, a very new concept. But in reality, there has been a vast history of trans people existing. Other cultures predating ours, America itself, have recognized multiple genders. While it is a very slim number of people, a small percentage, it has been something that's not necessarily new, although many of us haven't necessarily heard of it. Now, just because it's new and that's not the language you're used to, what is so wrong with maybe changing that to be more inclusive and make people feel a little bit better about their identity?
Well, there's nothing wrong with it, but the point is that if they don't do that, they've done nothing wrong. So if someone says, "Oh, no, I don't want to use the word woman to be applicable to psychological states, and I only mean it in biological states," that's their right. They have every right to use it that way because it's the way they were brought up. It's the way they've used the word for their entire lives. It has meaning to them. They can, from their perspective, it has more meaning to them. It's more corresponds to reality. And so it's perfectly rational for them to say, no, I think women refers to biological sex. And whether or not, like, obviously I think, yeah, trans people have been around for a while. That's true. But that doesn't make a difference to the fact that the language is new. So the fact that most people use woman throughout all cultures for the past tens of thousands of years to be synonymous with biological sex. Even like take the origin of the word woman is Latin for female, which is for female. It's biologically female. And so the origin of the word and how it's been used for the vast majority of human history is to be synonymous with biological sex. And so the fact that someone else comes along and says, well, no, I don't want you to use it this way because I like it this other way. No one's obligated to listen to them. Look, obviously, if you want to, if it makes them feel good, you can be a kind person
seriously,
and
that's a
acquiesce,
no-brainer.
but you're not obligated. You're not in any way transphobic for not doing that because it's not a bigotry against another group of people. It's a prioritization of your natural use of language. And simply saying that anybody is bigoted for not adopting the preferred use of language of one group is no different from like Christians saying
a small group at that.
Marriage is between a man and a woman. Like you must say, you can't use the word marriage to refer to same-sex couples. Well, obviously they're wrong. Like they're just dumb. And so the fact that someone wants to change a definition and some other people don't agree with that definition, doesn't make the people who don't agree bigoted in any way.
Well, I do agree with you that just because you don't necessarily adopt the language that people want to use doesn't make you a bigot. But again, you can still use transphobic language, and we should be working to change that.
Well, I want to be more clear. So I'm saying that
Okay.
this statement saying trans women aren't women, that statement isn't transphobic.
Okay. So that statement in itself is a denial of trans women. Oh, am I still going? I think I lagged for a second.
Yeah, I can hear you. I didn't hear.
Yeah, that statement in of itself is contradictory because you're saying trans women. Women is in the name, and they're
Okay, so women is in the name, trans women. So does he have a point?
My thing
in your
is,
opinion?
a trans woman is a trans woman. A trans woman is not a biological woman. It's a
Right.
category. It's a different category. So
There you go.
you're starting to blur the lines when you're trying to force biological women to call themselves the exact same thing you're calling yourself, or vice versa, whatever. So why is it so hard to say, okay, I'm a trans woman and I could have my own pronouns?
Right.
I was explaining to a trans woman earlier, why is it so bad to have your own restrooms, for example? Because we can't assess everybody's character, right? We can't. So we have to go by the data and the facts. And most violent crimes and sexual crimes against women are usually committed by males. And we know that, you know, based on biology, males are usually stronger and bigger than women and can
Wow,
dominate.
that's a good point, Sophia.
So I'm just saying,
I didn't think about that. That's a really good point, though.
So I'm just saying, if we allow you to come into our restrooms, we're also taking a risk because biologically, you're known to be bigger and stronger. So to protect women's safety in their own spaces, why can't you have your own bathroom? So this person said, well, if I'm not allowed to be in your restroom, but because I'm trans, if I go to a male's restroom, then I could be targeted by males as well. And I'm like, you're right. So in that case, it's also beneficial for you to have your own restroom.
There you go.
So what's the fucking big deal?
Right. Such a good point. You made a really good point.
there really is no definition of women that you could use that wouldn't exclude certain females, you know, assigned female at birth. The ability to give birth, for example, having a uterus, having 2 X chromosomes, those definitions all would exclude certain biological females.
Well, none of that.
I have a question for him and for anybody who's listening. So basically, we can be forced to include you into our space, but you have the freedom to just exclude yourself from where the hell you came from and where you actually belong to biologically.
But we're talking about words. I mean, all words are kind of exclusive. That's why they're words. They it's like a rock is not water, right?
Right, but he's saying that we have to start using. He wants to be the language police. He's saying that you got to use the language in a certain way to include transgenders, because if you don't use it in a certain way, then you're excluding them. And so we're supposed to be forced to use this new language, but like, who gave you the authority to just jump up one day and say, I'm not a man?
Well, why is it always for them, but they never really want to respect the way other people want to use language?
That's what I'm saying. Like, why do we have to go along with everything you make up or you come up with?
See, that's the part that's the part of this whole thing I don't really
have no say so at all. Like, fuck what we think, fuck our concerns, just fuck us. That's just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
The whole thing seems like a mask for narcissism, to be honest.
That's what it is, controlling, you know.
That would matter because it would accurately portray 99.999% of the population. So the fact that there's a 0.01% that it might exclude is irrelevant, because the point of language is utility. What works for people, does it correspond to reality? Whether or not it has 100% effectiveness rate just doesn't matter. So since it works for 99.999% of the population, that's all that really is relevant there. But the topic is, why do you think this is transphobic? It's not contradictory because trans women as a term can refer to people who identify or who were trans and transitioned physically to the physical characteristics of women or something along those lines. So it's not a contradictory to use trans women as not synonymous with women, just like it's not contradictory to use the term atheist to contradict theism, even though it has the word theist in it. So the question here is that the statement trans women are not
Yeah, he
women
is.
can be interpreted in two different ways. One is a transphobic way. So like if people think trans women are just delusional, they're just psychologically impaired, that could be transphobic because you're thinking they have some kind of psychological condition. But if by saying trans women are not women, all you mean is that women is a biological term, and in your culture it is synonymous with biological sex, then it's a true fact that trans women are not biological women, and that's how you use the term. And so there's two different ways to interpret the statement. One is a transphobic way, like if you're saying all trans women are psychologically impaired or have a delusion of some kind, and a non-transphobic way, which is just the word woman is synonymous with sex and it has nothing to do with a derogatory statement towards trans people. And so because there's two different ways to interpret the statement, it's wrong to infer that the statement itself or any usage of it is inherently transphobic.
Well, you pretty much brought it down. It's just the definition of women. Is using women synonymously with your biological sex, i.e. female, in itself transphobic? And now, these days, it is. Because if you change women to not mean anyone that identifies as a woman, really, is how we're defining it these days, and changing that definition to use it so rigidly without any room to move it when languages evolve is transphobic, because you're just trying to define trans women out of existence, more or less.
Well, no, because you're the one changing the definition. Like I mentioned earlier, the word woman for all of human history has meant biological sex. The
Well,
origin
that's
in
just not
Latin,
true, because as we already touched on, there have
Can I
been
say
many
something?
cultures
Oh
out
my
there
God.
Yeah, let me
throughout
pause it.
history
Hold
that
on
have
a
not
second.
used women in that way.
We're
Yeah.
basically, he's saying by not recognizing that language and using it in a way that they dictate, we're basically canceling them out and not recognizing their existence, right? But
Right.
when you forcing me to give up what I've always been, a mother and a woman and all that stuff, you know,
Canceling you out.
you're canceling me out and forcing me to give that up. Like, what the hell? That's what I am. That's what I've always been. I have kids. I'm a mother. You know what I'm saying? Like, why should I all of a sudden refer to myself as something different that doesn't even relate to me in any kind of way? So it's okay, once again, to put ourselves on the back burner and cancel our own selves out just so you can be happy.
Right. It's all about feelings. It's never about logic and reality. It's all
That
about how
that shit is highly irrational, and this is the reason why, you know, first of all, dysphoria is in the DSM-5 as a mental illness, but for some reason that definition was changed as well. But with that being said, you know, a lot of people can just recognize that this rhetoric is irrational, and that's why people assume that you might be a little bit mental. You know, I mean,
that's what it is. That's what I'm saying. You know, that's why I'm kind of like not really so sure whether it's delusion or not. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't know everything. I've read a lot about it, but from everything I've read, it's just kind of hard to call it as far as I'm concerned. But I do know one thing. You can't just go around changing words and reality. You can't do that. That is delusional. And being that it's correlated with what they're talking about, it just kind of equals just all a bunch of fucking imaginary shit to me.
yeah, and it would make sense that a person with dysphoria would do that. So I'm
Right.
just saying.
Exactly.
I'm just saying, man.
And everything is in your, all words and all these things are in your mind anyways. So it's kind of a moot point anyways, but I think they'll get into this a little later on, but we'll check it out. We're almost halfway through.
So maybe throughout English language, sure.
So like the origin of the word woman comes from Latin, from female, which means female, biologically female. So the entire origin of the word from its conception has meant female. Matt Walsh showed these examples in his documentary. In the debate with Vosh, Thomas Bogardus gave examples from people like the social justice professors who adopted or created this trans language openly admit that this is the way the world is, that the word is currently used by the majority of people and has currently been used by the vast majority of people. All of the evidence is that woman has been synonymous with biological sex for the vast majority of time, for the vast majority of humanity. That's not really something
That's
you
just
can
reality,
argue
man.
against. Have some people used it differently? Of course, every word has some people who use it differently, but the way the word has been used for the vast majority of time and the vast majority of people through all cultures is woman equals biological sex.
Sure. We're not really arguing necessarily that that's not true,
Yeah,
but
you are.
why is it so bad to change that, to let the language evolve and be more inclusive to more people?
Well, language and changing isn't the problem. The problem is saying not changing it is bad. Because when you say the statement,
But your entire reason not to change it is to just continue to exclude trans people from calling them women.
No.
What, then why is it so bad to just change the definition and be more inclusive?
Because it's not what I mean by the word. So if I say the word woman, what I mean is biological woman. And so if you want me to change that, you're asking me to change all of my intentional language of my entire past and bring my upbringing. And so most
not
people,
really. All you
no,
have to do is okay. I'm sorry.
Well, I wanted to bring up the point where you said the only reason to exclude trans women from women is to be transphobic. And that's the part that I'm disagreeing with. I'm saying that one of the reasons has nothing to do with transphobia. It just has to do with, this is what I mean by the word. And so like if a theist says, I want you to only use the word church to refer to Christianity or something, and that's what I mean by the word. If you have a different idea of church that's like inclusive to Wiccan churches and spiritual churches and Unitarian churches, you can just be like, no, that's not what I mean by the word. And so it's totally legitimate to disagree with the new definition, and say, I'm not going to change to that because what I mean by the word is something different, without it being in any way bigoted towards the group who wants to change the definition. So I agree there's nothing wrong with changing the definition, but there's also nothing wrong with continuing to use the definition that somebody else is already using.
Duh.
Once people are saying they feel excluded by that definition continuing to exist, and the main people using it, the vernacular changing to include trans women and refusing to go along with that, is in itself refusing to recognize trans women. And even in your own example, refusing to recognize a church that's not a Christian church as a church is just wrong. And while it's not necessarily out of a position of bigotry, it is.
What?
That's not true, because just because I refuse to say that you're the exact same thing as me doesn't mean I don't recognize you. I recognize you as a trans woman, and that's it. But I know that I know that you're not a biological woman, period. End of story.
That's it. That's
Jesus
it.
Christ, man.
Man, it's so annoying. It's like you can't really make sense of these people because they don't.
Man,
I
that
don't
shit
know
hurts.
if.
That shit hurts. That's worse than arthritis, man.
Yeah, I know it's crazy. You got to get through it though. This is funny.
A position of ignorance towards those other religions because they're obviously churches. And while I understand it's not a position of maybe hate or prejudice, it still is exclusive to them.
He's getting
and
agitated.
sticking to a rigid definition when society is changing and evolving away from that is in itself being a traditionalist and exclusive to trans people.
Well, so I'm not following really what you said there at all. So like, if I have a definition I'm using for my culture and you have a different culture with a different definition,
like
I'm not excluding your
culture.
culture.
Both American here,
There could be multiple cultures in America. There are definitely multiple cultures.
Right, but America as a society itself has changed the language, and we recognize trans women as women.
Well, again,
in
that doesn't
general.
matter.
That is what we culturally do. If you want to make the cultural
You're
argument,
you're jumping to a different topic here. So there can be cultures in America that disagree with other cultures in America. And so even if your culture wants to change the definition, that's fine, but no one else is obligated to. This is the part where I'm getting lost, where you keep thinking that you have a definition which you want to be more inclusive, and if anybody doesn't adopt your definition, they are by definition transphobic. That makes zero sense, zero logical sense.
Right.
Because there are justified reasons to use the definition that the other
Well,
group, which is the
and
majority
that's
of
I
America,
want to be clear that
Yes.
it's not just my definition. The definitions in themselves are changed to that. They've been redefined in the dictionary and all that shit. It's not
But
just
that doesn't
me.
matter. That literally
Society-
doesn't matter. So I
That's
don't
your
care.
whole argument, though, is that that's what it's been for so long. So I don't want to change, and not changing, even though it excludes transphobic people,
The argument is
doesn't
that
make me.
one
Okay, sorry.
culture has a utility of the word. It works in that culture to mean what it means, and they have a perfectly coherent meaning and usage and utility of the word. I don't care what a different culture does. If the dictionary culture and the social justice culture want to change it, that's fine.
Right.
The problem
Thank
you're
you.
making that you haven't argued yet is, how is a group of people not changing it transphobic? It must be transphobic because something.
Right.
The entire
Get to
reason
the
the
point.
definition is changing is to include trans people in
What-
that
doesn't-
definition.
I don't.
And
that
so
doesn't-
denying that change
Just repeating
is
yourself.
continuing to exclude trans people.
That's an appeal to motive fallacy. So if I have a motive that's good, say I want to help people, and I want to help people by changing the definition of potato to mean, I don't know, square root of a pork chop, anything, and somebody says that's not the definition of potato, is because my motive is to help people, does that mean that anybody who disagrees with my definition change must hate whatever my goal is? Like if let's say my goal is to help poor people, and in order to help poor people, I change the definition of potato, but someone's like, that's not the definition of potato. Does that mean they hate poor people?
No, it's not a position of hate, it's a position of exclusion. Because
Okay,
you're telling
does that mean
trans
that they are
women that
excluding
they are
poor
not
people?
women.
Wait. So if I say I'm trying to help poor people, and in order to help poor people, I'm changing the definition of potato, and somebody says, no, that's stupid, that's not the definition of potato, does that mean they are excluding poor people? Does that mean they dislike poor people?
Well,
and
of
they're
course
helping poor
not.
people? Right. You just disagree with the
Thank you.
definition, right?
Yes. So you disagree with the definition that trans women are women, which means you
Yes.
disagree with trans women existing.
What?
No.
It doesn't mean you hate.
How?
Or I don't mean to say you, as in I'm labeling anything with.
See,
that shit's crazy. First of all, I don't even think it's transphobic to say, hey, you can't be excluded and included in everything that biological females do.
right.
You can't be, because for one, you can't have a period. For two, you can't have a baby. You don't have
Right.
a uterus. So how in the hell are you going to include yourself into everything that biological females do?
Well, why is just understanding the reality of how nature works? Does that mean nature's transphobic? I don't understand.
Yeah, I know. I told that to this other guy because they want to refer to us as TERFs. I mean, my bad. I don't know. It might have been a trans woman. I don't know. So I don't know. Anyway, but we're TERFs, whatever the hell that is, some made up shit. And supposedly it describes women, biological women who have a problem with transgenders or whatever. I don't even know the exact definition of that. But, I told him, well, if that's the case, nature is the ultimate TERF then, because nature dictates what's reality and what isn't. So what are we going to do about that?
Right. I mean, what is this? The decade of word games? I don't.
Pretty much. And how is that? How am I not recognizing your existence by saying you're not a biological woman?
Stupid.
Just you in general. But that would mean you don't view trans women as women, which in itself is transphobic.
Why?
Like how is that transphobic to say the definition of woman is biological sex, and therefore, like a trans woman is a person.
Trans women that their identity doesn't exist. You are just defining their identity out of existence.
No, because no trans woman thinks they're biologically female.
No, they don't. They think they are women, though. And
Right,
telling them
so-
you're not
so-
a woman because
That's
you're
not
not
what
biologically
women means in our
female
culture.
is a denial of their
Dumbass.
identity, is it not?
No,
Is this
no,
the
that's wrong. That's
disconnect we
wrong.
have?
Hold up. That's totally wrong. So if by woman I mean biological sex, so anytime I use the word woman, it means biological sex. And a trans woman says, I'm denying their identity. Well, no, because they agree they're not biologically women. They agree with me. If you're using my definition, they aren't.
They agree they're not
But,
biologically
so what
female.
they
Yeah.
mean by women is a psychological state, gender instead of sex. Now, from my position, I agree that their psychological state is of a woman, but that's just not how I define woman. So I'm not rejecting their identity. I agree they exist. I agree they have
So
the
what would you
psychological state.
call the psychological state of being a woman? What is that
Trans.
then?
What is the psychological? There
You would
isn't
just
one.
call that trans.
No.
Not
There is.
trans woman.
Go back.
What
So
I would
there
what I would
isn't a
say to that
psychological
is
state of
that
being a woman. It's a biological fact. Psychology makes.
what I would say to that is that I recognize that you think you have the psychological
right
mindset of a woman, because I mean, at the end of the day, that's what you think, but that don't mean it's necessarily true, because a lot of trans women do not behave anything like biological women, and they themselves try to mold themselves after Hollywood stereotypes.
Right.
And that's not even really how women behave, to be honest.
Yeah, it's almost like a caricature of a woman.
Yeah. And not only that, like these Hollywood models and stars, and that's not your average people, you know, that's something that's being sold to you, and that changes throughout time. At one point it's skinny ass women, at one point it's women with asses, you know, and if every woman would align herself with every trend that comes out, we'd be all fucked up in the mind. You know what I'm saying? Like,
True.
those are just
Absolutely.
Hollywood stereotypical depictions of women, and you fashioning yourself after that.
Right.
And that's not necessarily what a woman is.
Exactly.
Makes zero difference whatsoever.
Then what were you just saying there about agreeing with the psychological state? I must have misunderstood you.
Okay, so a trans woman, the way they define woman is based off of psychological states. And I agree they have a psychological state that corresponds to them wanting to find a woman. That's fine. So I agree their psychological state exists. I agree the person as a whole exists, but their biological fact is not a woman. And so in this case, we both agree on all of the facts. Like, they psychologically believe they are a woman, they are biologically not a woman. And the difference is which aspects, psychological or biological, we are using to correspond to the word woman. And so whenever you apply a definition, you have to apply the definition of the person making the argument. Otherwise, it's called a straw man fallacy. So if I say trans women aren't women, and by women I mean biological sex, the entire statement there is going to be factually true and agreed upon by both parties, because again, by woman equal biological sex. But if they use the word trans women are women, they mean a psychological state, which again, both parties are going to 100% agree their psychological state is a real thing. And so in this case, it is wrong to say that someone is transphobic because they disagree with your definition. That makes zero sense. There's no logical connection there. That's the problem I'm trying to understand from
so the two things you said, I absolutely agree with. That's true. And that's why these definitions are changing. So that to biologically mean woman, we mean female. And then to psychologically mean woman, we just mean woman. And saying, no, I don't want to do that is inherently transphobic.
You haven't explained how. So again, you have to explain
because
how.
the language has changed so that it includes trans people.
Well,
that makes
that
it
doesn't
easier
answer the
to
question.
define the state that they're in. So we
It doesn't
don't
answer
have
the
to
question.
say biologically you're a
Wait.
woman.
That doesn't answer the question.
Psychologically,
Wait. Stop.
you're not.
Stop. You're saying that because the language has changed and you haven't changed it, you're therefore transphobic. That is stupid. That is unambiguously stupid. There are many words that
to include trans people, and not
stop. Too many points. One point at a time. So if your argument is that if the definition is changing in the broader culture and your definition isn't changing, you're a bigot, that is false. That is unambiguously a stupid argument. There are lots of words that change definition and people just don't agree. And that's totally fine. There's no bigotry in that whatsoever. So I don't know how you're getting from the fact that some people in the culture are changing the definition, some people don't. Therefore, the people who don't are transphobic.
Well, the definition is changed. It's not some people are changing it. They changed it. That happened.
What? People are what
what the
make
dictionary
definitions,
says
dumbass.
now. The woman is defined societally as gender now. It's not based off of
That's
your body.
irrelevant. No, it has
Why
not
is it
changed. The
not
vast majority of
relevant?
culture, because well, you haven't shown how it's relevant. So whether or not some people who write the dictionary have changed it does not mean the way it's used in the broader culture has changed. Language is determined by its usage in the culture, not what's written in the dictionary. This is just Linguistics 101, Steven Pinker, ambiguity of natural language. And so since the broader culture, the vast majority of people still use woman as biological sex, the word in the culture has not changed. A group has changed or is trying to change it. But that's irrelevant, or at least I don't know why you think it's relevant that one group has tried to change it, therefore, or the culture has tried to change it, therefore the people who disagree are transphobic. There's no connection between those two statements.
Well, the whole effort is to include trans people, and it's
That's
just
nice.
fighting
Okay,
against
he's
including
just.
trans people.
Can we just skip past that? Because I mean, this has been going on for 15 minutes. And
He's just repeating them. Who does this remind you of?
he's not getting it. That sounds like that dude Kale on your wall and shit.
That's what I'm saying. It sounds like arguing with Kale. He's just repeating the same shit. But I wanted to get to the point where he actually apologized at the end and conceded and why. I thought that was pretty funny.
Me specifically, I mean
Okay,
like the phrase.
yeah,
'cause I think
people that do that, I agree with you. They should stop it. It's rude. It's just not
wait,
proper
we gotta do
behavior in general. So
better method. And I think the same thing applies to the definition of woman. If the definition of woman is biological, that makes sense. It's very easy to understand. It's coherent. It has a very specific meaning. Whereas if we use the psychological identify as a woman kind of a thing, it loses all meaning. And so the way we use language is completely changed and made worse because of the ambiguation of the word, where it had a very specific correspondence to reality before. Now it doesn't, and that is like saying 1 + 1 = 7. It's just it just dilutes the value of language. And so from my perspective, even though I agree trans people are people and they should be respected like every other group of people, the method of changing the language is a stupid method. And so why can't you acknowledge that people can disagree with the method and not have that be a legitimate criticism of your position instead of just demonizing it? Because to me, it just seems like, oh, well, if anybody disagrees with me, they're evil. It seems like what your argument is essentially.
Well, I have said multiple times that not using that definition doesn't make the person transphobic, and it doesn't mean it's coming from a position of hate. So it doesn't make you evil. But
Right. Just to clarify, I don't mean me specifically.
Okay.
I mean like the phrase.
Yeah, people that do that, I agree with you. They should stop it. It's rude. It's just not proper behavior in general.
He's
So
finally
I'm
getting
not
the point.
arguing that we should go out and attack people for not changing their language. It's okay ultimately, but why is it stupid to change woman to mean anyone that identifies as woman? We still have the term female. Like, it's not really even that difficult. Why is it stupid? And what makes you think that wouldn't be a benefit to trans women?
Well, I think it wouldn't be a benefit to the meaning of words. So I think that Matt Walsh's question, what is a woman? If we accept the new modified definition, the word woman loses all meaning. It's just a word that no longer has value and we can just get rid of it altogether. In order to be able to use the word woman in any context, it has to have some meaning. It can't just be a self-fulfilling definition or a self-reflective definition. It has to have some specific meaning. And if you can't give that specific meaning, then it becomes ambiguous and the word is meaningless. We should get rid of it entirely in society. And if we compare the two, the biological sex has a very specific meaning. It is applied more accurately than most words to a very specific context. It corresponds to reality better than the vast majority of other words. It is a very good usage of the word in order to try and make some kind of language utility to communicate ideas to different people when speaking. And that is what makes a word good, essentially. And so if we're trying to dilute that meaning by making it so ambiguous that it's simply a self-reflective definition, then it's just has no value in society anymore. And so I think that disagreeing with that methodology is perfectly rational without having the phrase saying trans women are not women in any way be transphobic. It's a valid criticism of the position, rather than simply in any way transphobic in and of itself.
Now society has begun to identify trans women as women and recognize that. So anybody that's called trans, and people just see them as a woman, recognize them as a woman, and call them she, whatever. It can be recognized outside. There are roles that if you fit into, you're recognized as a woman, regardless of your sex you were assigned at birth.
Right. And I'm not saying that people can't do that. So it's fine. I don't think there's a problem with the SJW community for using this. They're totally fine to use words in whatever they want. The argument I'm making is saying that people who disagree, the fact that they disagree doesn't make them or their statements transphobic. There can be a criticism of a position that isn't a derogatory statement against a group. There's a difference between criticism and bigotry, and nobody in the SJW community seems to differentiate between the two. They just seem any criticism is inherently bigotry. Just like Christians think that anyone who disagrees with their ideology is hate against Christians. It's a ridiculous position.
I would definitely agree that that's a ridiculous position. And to say that you're bigoted would also be a ridiculous position.
Well, no. So
from what I know of you, but
no. I'm like saying the statements "trans women are not women" can be a criticism, not a derogatory, bigoted statement. So you have to be able to acknowledge that the statement itself can be a criticism, not a bigoted statement, and therefore it's not correct to say the statement itself is transphobic because it can be a legitimate criticism.
You know, honestly, I think I agree with you. That makes some sense. That in and of itself, it might not necessarily be transphobic. There have to be other factors at play for it to be transphobic. So you're correct there. I would agree with you and change my position to that at least.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not in and of itself transphobic, but there are factors that could be involved that make saying that transphobic.
Absolutely, I 100% agree.
Okay. Well, I think we agree then, and you got me. I wish I was able to give you more of a performance or anything, but I'm rusty, man. It's been a long time since I've done any of this type of stuff. But
well, what do you think about that?
I think your friend here had the patience that it really requires to get through to somebody like that, because he was so stuck on the same thing. I mean, me personally, I would have lost patience. I would have been
I know you would have had no time for that kind of bullshit. Like, I don't have time for this dumbass.
My stress level, man, was going up. I'm like, oh,
you were already getting the cigarette out. God damn it, dumbass.
Yeah,
Kale.
I mean, hey, but I gotta give it to him. You know, he understood finally, and he did. You know, man up and say, you know, you got a point here, and I have to agree with you. So at least he's kind of rational.
See, that's
you know?
what I'm saying. Where we come in, this is what we're doing here, Sophia. Is we're trying to change minds through reason and rationality. You know, like
I mean, I wouldn't say
yeah.
that I'm necessarily trying to change minds. I would say that. I mean, I'm not saying that's bad or anything, but personally, I like to build bridges to where we can come to some type of resolution to get along, because at the end of the day, we all got to live in America.
That's right.
You know, so it is what it is. I'm not trying to change you. I'm not trying to make you be something you don't want to be. But at the same time, you got to respect other people too who don't see it your way, because that's what America is about, freedom of speech. And as long as there is no violence attached to it, or me physically knocking you over your head because you identify as trans, then, you know, like, why do you care so much about what other people say or think? Like, at the end of the day, as long as your rights are not being violated, and you, as far as I can tell, you have all the rights of every other human being, you know, so what's really
and
the
we
problem
can have
here?
the conversation. I think this was like the reason I wanted to show it was like, this is a perfect example of how conversations can go. No matter how difficult they might be, you can kind of plant seeds along the way, and eventually, maybe at least, maybe not in this case, this guy changed his mind or whatever, but at least in a more realistic, like, I don't have any expectation that would ever happen, but I think what would be at least you can kind of the goal should be is maybe at least get them to understand you, like
right, and come to
have
some
some
kind
kind
of
of understanding, you know.
common ground, because I mean he know what he was talking about, and he broke it down to him really good, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, that's what you got to do, because anybody can come out and just say anything, and you really have to break it down and show them that's not true, you know. And he did a good job at that.
Right, right. Yeah, I thought it was great, man. I was really proud of T Jump for how he handled that city. He did a lot better than me, and you know, because
Well,
I've had
we
that
already know
conversation.
he did a lot better than me too.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of patience and composure because you know you have people that say all kinds of crazy stuff to you, and it's like, dude, I've just got done explaining this shit like 10 different ways. Like, how many? What are you doing? Are you just trolling me at this point? What's really going on? But this
Right.
kind of shows you too, though. Some people are just so, I don't want to say brainwashed, but they're so like stuck on a concept and married to an idea. They just know it's true, and like there's
Well,
no
it
way
is.
this, you know.
I mean, like you said, I mean, you got to call it for what it is. It is kind of a form of brainwashing, because you got
Mm-hmm.
the left reinforcing this bullshit and
Mm-hmm.
basically throwing this at everybody. And like I was saying to these a couple of trans people I was talking to, you know, at this point we need to be careful, because this whole thing about hormone therapy and this and that and all this gender treatment and stuff like that, like it really seems that at this point it's almost like, you know, this screams big pharma to me, because like you're using people and exploiting their mental illness and using them as human guinea pigs at this point, because we're having all these transgenders coming out saying they want to detransition. We have them coming out talking about the bad side effects, that clinic that was shut down due to, you know, I mean, it's starting to happen exactly like I said it would, because there were too many unknown factors, and it's like they just pumped this shit out and packed it, wrapped it in a nice little gift wrapper, and then just pumped this out to people who are already emotionally vulnerable, and it made them feel good, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And now they have to retract a lot of that stuff, and it's fucking up their whole.
Yeah,
You know,
and
what
see,
is it called?
this is
Is it called cognitive dissonance? I don't know.
cognitive dissonance is where you can't really square your feelings with your rational mind. And so, yeah, it's like we were saying earlier, like, you know, capitalism is not a moral system. It's just a system of making money and you know, engaging in free trade and things of that nature that are related to that. Um, so it
But
is
I
up
think
to
you
the
could.
culture. It is
I'm
up to
about
the
to say,
cultural level to really sway the public's opinion, and you know, supply and demand. So I tell you, if people were not wanting to do dangerous stuff, then Big Pharma would not sell dangerous things. But as long as there's a demand for dangerous shit, the rules of capitalism is supply and demand, right? So while capitalism is a good system in and of itself, this is where the human side comes in. We have to really
right. There
start
has to
to
be.
put values in our, yeah.
There has to be some kind of accountability as well.
That's right.
Just because the pusher man is popping up at my door doesn't mean I have to buy it. You know.
Absolutely.
But I mean, at the
Absolutely.
same time, you can be. That's not to say that the dealer isn't evil, though. You know. So.
Right. Right.
You know, capitalism can be corrupt just like any other system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like I wouldn't have the nerve or the, I don't know, I just don't have it in me to go out and sell things that I know are going to poison people. Like I
Right.
just
I
don't
can't.
want to.
I'm not going to harm people for my own profit.
Right. I could do that any day of the week if I wanted to,
Right.
but I
I don't
don't,
want to. That's
because
what I'm
I
saying. I
don't
don't
want
want to
to.
do that.
Right. That's right.
But
And so,
unfortunately, we have evil or wickedness or badness or whatever. It's always going to be there, and sometimes we do have to take some self responsibility, though, because, like you said, You ain't, you know, inform yourself. Don't go for everything that's just appealing to your emotional body, you know. Do your research, and because with the whole transgender stuff, it's so complicated. It's not black and white, and they're trying to always make everything just black and white, and it's just more complex than that. You know, there's so many reasons a person could have dysphoria. I mean, there's people who've been sexually abused and molested, and they're not really trans, but they think they are. And, you know, so get to the bottom of it. Do more research. Like I said earlier, we need some stop signs. We need some road maps. We need a lot of little extra things in there to make sure that this is safe. You know what I'm saying?
And the point isn't to make a group like conservatives or religious people feel better. The point is to do what's right for you. Protect yourself, protect your children. Look into it, study it, understand the facts. You know, don't always go by the media and social media and the politically correct crowd and these groups. These groups have their own agendas. They don't give a shit about anybody else. Obviously, all they care about is that their agendas get pushed through and that they get the funding they need to operate as a business and do their thing. So again, capitalism at work. Sometimes they're trying to create a problem that really doesn't exist so that they can make money. That's always what it is. Big churches do that too. These mega churches, they try to get people to understand that they're poor and they need salvation and they need a miracle in their life. And boom, they're the solution.
That's why some of this is so ironic to me, because these same people are saying capitalism is evil, but yet you're the main one that's letting these people exploit you. You know, it's so weird, man. Like,
only in America, baby. Only in America.
Yeah, like
they wouldn't let that shit fly in Europe.
You're against capitalism, but you're their biggest guinea pig, man. Yeah, let that shit sink in.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, we've been on for almost an hour and a half, so I want to respect your time. You know.
Well, the kids got to go to bed. You know, they got school in the morning, 5:30. They got to get up, and so yeah, I'm about to have to round all my chickens up and get them ready for bed. But this was a really good show.
This was
again,
fun, really fun. I was hoping to
I
have
wish
more
we
of an
get some
audience.
callers.
Yeah, come on, guys. I think people are scared to jump in with a.
Maybe they don't like me because a lot of people don't like me. So
They're like, I ain't letting that girl take my head off.
Hey, I've been calm though. I've been calm. I'm calming down.
Yeah. But that's what we want. We want some fire. We want some, you know.
Yeah,
some
we're just
people
trying to make it a
stand
little
up.
more exciting.
Yeah, come on, guys. You know, if
I
you're
mean, we
watching
should
the
be
channel,
we should be able to talk about it. You know, go ahead. Sorry.
there you go. I was just gonna say, come on through, guys. We can talk about whatever. We won't demean you as a person. Now, I'll call your ideas stupid, because if your ideas are stupid, they need to be called out. And if I'm wrong, call my idea stupid. I don't care. You're not attacking me. You're attacking an idea, which is imaginary shit. So, anyways, let's end the show here. Enjoyed it as usual. Next week we'll do it again. Hopefully we'll have more, you know, participation. So if you like what we're doing, like and subscribe again and participate next week. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm out for this week. And you guys have a good night.
Me too. See you all later.
You got it.